nature, things of that 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 nature.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Pod of That Nature pregame show as we get you ramped up for Arkansas and Tennessee in Fayetteville, 6:30 Saturday night. I'm Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas, joined as always by my man Andrew Ellis. And Andrew, man, listen, we're going to do the normal thing. We're going to talk about non-negotiables. If the Hogs are going to pull off this, what would be a massive upset. We're going to dish out some challenges. We're going to do bold predictions, all the things that we normally do on this show. But before we really dive into that, I got to ask you, man, because there's been lots of people out there, national media, who are doing the whole, I wouldn't say putting this as an upset alert game, but more or less like a, hey, this needs to be on your radar as a sneaky, really good game kind of deal. Why do you think that's the case? Because based on what we've seen from Tennessee and what we've seen from Arkansas the last couple of weeks.
More than anything else, Curtis, I honestly believe that's the case because the college football slate this weekend isn't that great. Like, I'm just going to be honest with you. And so a lot of those national guys that are kind of looking for games that could be exciting or, and it's also on 6:30 ESPN or ABC, potentially had a chance at game day. And so I think there's a little bit of a duty for those guys to hype it up a little bit. But I also do think most people are doing the mental gymnastics of saying, hey, Arkansas is 3-2, but if you really look at it, they're a few plays away from being 5-0, and clearly they've competed with they haven't really been out of a game yet. And when I say that, I mean, they really, like, in their two losses, they were as close to being in the game as you could be. And so, yeah, I think, there's a case to be made for it, and you're at home. And I think people are maybe overlooking how toxic the relationship between Arkansas's football team and its home fans is right about now. But I think people are assuming that atmosphere is going to be popping this weekend, and it should be. Even with everything that we've said, even with the disappointing losses, even with the fan base like being ready to fire the coach, I still think the atmosphere should at least start off pretty hostile. It should be a rowdy crowd. And so I think all those things kind of play into it. And we're going to talk about some of it. I think Tennessee is about, on paper, about as well-rounded and hard to knock off as they come. But I don't think anybody in the country believes they've been massively tested. And I know the OU game is kind of the one game Razorback fans will point to, but I think there's also some people that kind of want to see before they really buy in to this Tennessee team as a playoff, contender, real threat to win the title. I think they want to see them face some adversity. And I think some people are just kind of thinking, hey, maybe Arkansas is the type of team with their back against the wall, desperation mode, who can force Tennessee to overcome some adversity on the road, and I know they kind of had to do that against Oklahoma. And so, yeah, who knows? But I don't necessarily buy it completely, but I get the case for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I just strongly push back on all of it, though. Like, I know where you're coming from, but this whole premise about Tennessee not being tested is crazy to me. It's week 5 in the damn season. Like, I mean, everybody plays the Kent States of the world. You know what I mean?
Right.
You've gone on the road in your SEC opener to Oklahoma with the bad blood, with your coach who used to be there, everything, and just beat the hell out of those guys. That's a really, really impressive win. It's not Tennessee's fault that North Carolina State sucks. But at the time, that was a big time matchup, and I get it. With the Arkansas is a couple plays away from being 5-0. They're also a couple plays away from being worse than that. Like, they're a couple plays away from losing to UAB. So at the end of the day, for me, and I think it's going to be a competitive game. We'll get into it, but my biggest pushback would be, there's been no reason, unless you're really grasping at straws, to kind of question Tennessee. And while you could make an argument that Arkansas might be the most talented team or the best team or whatever that they face, Arkansas is trending in the wrong direction right now. Like, they're going to have to buck that trend because this is not going the way you wanted it to with Sam Pittman, Taylon Green. We got people calling into our show every day wanting to bench the starting quarterback 5 games into the season. And then we got the other side saying, hey, they're going to go out here and beat Tennessee. It's kind of weird. So, the atmosphere should be great. And I think it will be, but we also need to see if Arkansas can come out and play well at home for a change. They're going to have to. So I've got a ton of questions about this one. I'm surprised to see how many people are saying, look out. Oh, look at the Vols now. They're coming off of a bye week. They might be a little bit rusty, or they might be fresh, would be my argument. And Arkansas is limping into this one. They haven't had their bye week yet. So I don't know. I mean, you can like you said, it's kind of the mental gymnastics thing on what's a pretty weak slate for the college football weekend. But I don't know. I think this is a big time challenge for Arkansas. So we'll see if they're going to get it done, though, Andrew. And I think they're 2 touchdown underdogs. What has to happen? Let's start with the non-negotiables. We're skipping the position battles thing because, frankly, Tennessee is probably better at every position where there would be a battle. Maybe you could make the exception of 1 or 2 here or there, but this is more about big picture stuff. Like, what has to happen for Arkansas to have a chance to win this game?
So statistically, Tennessee's run game is the number 1 run game in the SEC. They're averaging 290 yards per game on the ground. And I was looking into it a little bit. Now, they only played 4 games, and everyone else played 5. Not a massive sample size. So I can't remember which one of I think it was either Kent State or Chattanooga, that they ran for like 460 yards in that game. And they ran for over 300 in another one of those games. And against NC State, they ended up, cranking out over 200 yards on the ground. And so they've been doing it pretty consistently. The Oklahoma game, again, like that's really the best barometer we have, because I think Oklahoma and Arkansas are on somewhat of the same level. I mean, they played Auburn pretty similarly. You could actually argue that Arkansas played Oklahoma better. But in that game, Tennessee ran the ball for 151 yards, and it was under 3 yards a carry. I will also clarify that Tennessee does the weird 7-yard kneel down. So they had like 19 yards worth of kneel downs. So really they ran for closer to 165, 170 range, but it was under 3 yards an attempt for the game. And so I think if you're making the case of like what Arkansas is going to have to do, they cannot let Tennessee run wild. And Arkansas's run defense has been pretty solid. I mean, statistically speaking, Arkansas's run defense is 5th in the SEC and 21st nationally, allowing under 100 yards per game. And obviously A&M kind of broke through there at the end of the game, but of course that was against second and third team defensive linemen, which who knows if we're going to see them in the fourth quarter, in the first quarter, whatever the case may be. But, if I'm thinking of things that have to happen in this game, Arkansas has to hold Tennessee. I don't know what the number is. I'm not going to put a monitor, like a value on it of like, they can't run for X amount of yards, but I think it can't be an easy day on the ground for the Volunteers. It's going to have to be one of those games where they're going to get their yards because they're a damn good offense, and that's just kind of what they do. I mean, even that Oklahoma game I just cited, they ran the ball for 150 yards. So I imagine they're going to end up running for in that 150 to 200 range, but it needs to be a lot more of a 3-4 yards per carry type of performance, which we've been seeing from Arkansas's offense lately. And defensively, I think Arkansas's got the pieces to kind of make that happen, especially if they just really commit to it. Now the big question is we'll talk, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but the Nico, I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name, aspect of this. I think Arkansas's game plan has to be the very simple, force him to beat us, which he very well is capable of doing. I don't think anybody should go into this matchup sleeping on that quarterback at all. But I think it kind of has to start there. That's kind of what Oklahoma did. They were like, we're going to take away the run game and force him to beat him. And he beat him. And I think if you're Arkansas, that's about the right type of outline that you need to be going for.
Yeah. And just for the sake of anybody who didn't watch that game, if Tennessee wanted to beat Oklahoma by 35 points, they would have. Period. It was a blowout. They took the foot off the gas, whatever. Wound up being a 10-point game there at the end. They forced Oklahoma to bench their 5-star, hey, we're going to get Dylan Gabriel out of here so we can play this guy quarterback halfway through that game. So at any rate, it's the Nico thing I think is a really important factor there. He's going to be by far the most talented quarterback that Arkansas has faced so far this season. It's not even close, but he's also inexperienced. And so I agree with you. You have to make that dude beat you. And maybe he can, and he's really good, so it stands to reason. But he's not perfect. He's thrown some picks here and there, and I don't think he's been put in a position, which I've heard you say this on Inside Arkansas Live, like he hasn't had to put a game on his shoulders and go win it, I guess. And Arkansas is going to have to do that, and so it starts. You're 100% right with limiting them a little bit on the ground, and then seeing how Arkansas's defense holds up through the air. And they might be great there. I'd feel a lot better about it if they had Jalen Braxton back, which he's out again this weekend. Man, must be some nasty tendonitis there. My goodness. But it's tough for me to say with a lot of confidence because On one hand, I've watched these guys the last couple of games, and I feel like, man, the secondary is really kind of turning the corner. It's looking pretty good. But man, like the Auburn quarterback situation was so tough. Marcel Reed, a redshirt freshman who's was not their starter, and he's not necessarily the biggest thrower in the world. They weren't taking a bunch of chances with him. You saw Alan Bowman, who after the first half kind of started picking you apart. So I don't know what to expect against it goes both ways, I guess, to where they might be the biggest challenge that Tennessee has faced, but Tennessee's certainly going to be the biggest challenge Arkansas has faced. So will they kind of rise up to the level of that competition? I hope so. And like you said about the defense, like I think they can. Like they seem like they're equipped to do that. We'll just have to see. Another thing for me, I'm not going to say it's like Arkansas has to get off to a fast start. I'm not necessarily saying that so much as you almost need like a stalemate kind of out of the starts, because Arkansas, they've come out flat at home time and time again. I don't think they're going to do that in this big game, big environment against Tennessee, but we've seen it before. But the thing about the Vols is they've outscored their opponents 78-3 in the first quarter of games. So you hope that there is something to maybe that it's been a couple weeks. They might be a little rusty coming out of the gates before they sharpen up. You get a combination of that and an Arkansas team that's really fired up to play. It doesn't have to be a deal where you jump out on them 10-0 right away, but you can't let them jump out on you like that out of the gates. So I think that's going to be really important. And then, Andrew, I'm teeing you up for this one because I think we both agree that a non-negotiable here has got to be you got to have good Taylen Green in this game if you're going to have a chance to win it.
Well, it's so funny is when we're doing the Taylen Green conversation every day, which at this point in our lives, as people who cover this team and who do a daily show, every single day we talk about Taylen Green and whether or not he's the guy for this Arkansas offense. This kind of matchup is actually where I'm like, you have to have Taylen Green because whatever the highest ceiling for your Razorback offense is, it involves him. It involves his legs in some way. By the way, I was talking about how Tennessee, their run game offensively, their run defense is out of this world. I mean, they're giving up 50 yards a game. They've given up 200 yards on the entire freaking season. And so running the ball for Arkansas is going to be a tall task. And we saw that was a tall task for them against A&M last week. So I think it's very much, and they didn't necessarily run all over Auburn. And so I think Arkansas's run game, which is clearly a big deal of, for their offense, that's kind of been their calling card through 5 weeks. They're going to need Taylen Green very involved in that run game. They're going to have to get creative. You're not just going to be able to turn around, hand it to Jaquinta Jackson and get 6-7 yards a pop against this Tennessee defense. I mean, they literally average 50 yards a game. And so I think Taylen Green's legs are very much a factor in this. I also think he's going to have to be able to take the top off of this defense and make some big plays.
Yes.
And obviously Oklahoma's quarterback Jackson Arnold was just not able to do that. And by the way, I do think Oklahoma eventually found I think they like this freshman Michael Hawkins. He seems to be the better option. He played pretty well against Auburn, made some big plays. And so, I think there's something to be said. Maybe this could be exactly like the Oklahoma game where maybe this is the game where everyone realizes, okay, Taylen Green really isn't going to be it. I don't really believe that's going to happen here, but I think Taylen Green's going to have to be the playmaker version of him. The big playmaker, the home run hitter, as we've kind of called him. He's that kind of guy. He's going to have to pull some rabbits out of the hat here, make some of those big plays, whether it's Satania, Isaac TeSlaa, maybe even Tyrone Broden. We know Andrew Armstrong's going to be Andrew Armstrong. And so I think you're going to have to get some of that. I think Petrino's going to have to be deep in his bag, calling up those crazy wheel routes and flea flickers and whatever. It's going to have to be, maybe they'll run the cowboy giddy up to Lucas. Maybe they'll do something crazy like that. But I definitely agree. If this game turns into a shootout, I quickly am losing faith in Arkansas's ability to win it. I'm just going to be honest. We talked about that on the show yesterday. Would you rather it be a low scoring game or a high scoring game for Arkansas? I think it kind of has to be an ugly, muck it up, short game. And you mentioned that the start. I think it needs to be one of those games where the first quarter flies by and it's 3-0, 2. We've only had one possession each, but there's 1 minute left in the first quarter. I think it needs to be one of those shortened games where, if Taylen Green is 9 for 19, but he has a 65-yard touchdown in a low scoring 17-20, night type of game, you can win with a guy like that. I think if it gets to a point where it's just hey, which offense is more efficient, Arkansas is going to have a hard time matching Josh Heupel and Nico and Dylan Sampson and that entire Tennessee offense. And so I think it's got to be low scoring, and you've got to have some home run plays from Taylor Green to kind of keep you in this one. And then I'm sure, we're going to talk about this as well, but the turnovers absolutely have to be a factor. And Arkansas has been on the wrong side of the turnover margin just about every single game. I think outside of the Auburn game, which of course is their best win of the year, you just can't be in that position. You can't get behind the 8-ball. And look, if you throw a pick, if you get into a shootout and you're trying to go downfield all the time, you throw a pick or whatever, okay. But if it's going to be this muck it up 17-13 type of game, just simply cannot have any of those stupid self-inflicted mistakes. And so, that's quite the tall task for this Arkansas offense. But I think it also works on the other side where if you're forcing Nico to beat you, you've got to step up and make some of those plays.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, winning the turnover battle, that's going to be super important. And yeah, you're 100% right. I'm glad you said what you said about if you throw a pick, whatever. I think you get one. Like it doesn't have to be a perfectly clean game or whatever, but you can't have a bunch of crooked numbers in departments like that, especially if you're not forcing more than you're giving away there. Do you have anything else on that front, or are we moving on to challenges? Where are you at?
I'm trying to think of anything non-negotiable for Arkansas to upset Tennessee. I mean, there's a lot that needs to happen. So we really could spend an hour and a half just being like, well, this guy has to be good. This guy has to be good. They can't do this. Yeah, I mean, it really it just is a no funny. I mean, we kind of touched on it, the turnovers, but just no funny business.
Yeah.
There can't be, there's all these weird, the 5 keys to victory, all the things that matter in any matchup, regardless of who's playing, turnovers, special teams, all that. I just feel like Arkansas's got to kind of win all of those matchups, whether it's, the turnover battle, they have to make their field goals if they have a chance. They can't give up a big return. They need some type of luck in that realm if they're going to win this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's move on to challenges. We might as well pick up where we just left off with Taylor Green. I'm sure you probably had a challenge for him too. I mean, mine, I think, and we can combine them if we want to. I don't know. I don't know what your challenges were. We probably should have talked about it, but I'm challenging Green just to be a confident quarterback in there. And I know it's easier said than done when you're a little shaken, you're a little rattled, which some of that is a probably a mental toughness thing that he's got to work through himself. But also, his offensive line could help out in that department too. But you cannot be playing scared or unsure in a game like this. And I love what you said about he's going to have to take the top off his defense a couple of times. He has to be willing to take those chances, and he's going to have to hit some of those big plays, like you mentioned, because I don't know that Arkansas is going to be able to just from start to finish, sustain these long, efficient scoring drive. There's going to have to be some big plays involved there. And frankly, he's at his best when he's kind of going, maybe off script a little bit, whether it's by his own design or he has no choice, and playing backyard football to a degree. You're going to have some of that. And I think it comes with him being confident. If he's unsure and he's not willing to take chances and he's playing it conservative and he's hearing footsteps, it's going to get ugly quick. And I think that is the recipe for everybody who's wanting to see Malachi Singleton to where that would happen. You need more of the, like the Oklahoma State Taylor Green, where, there was, some mistakes and bad throws and things like that mixed in there. But overall, it was the dynamic that he brought to the table that outweighed it.
Yeah. And Curtis, I really am, I hope that our weekly challenges don't end up being the same challenges every week. We mix it up here and there, but we've had some repeat offenders here. And so I'm kind of, we do any receiver outside of Andrew Armstrong is kind of our popular, we got to challenge one of these guys. But kind of going off of that play, that Taylor Green challenge of there's got to be some big plays. There's got to be some stuff that kind of punches Tennessee in the mouth. I'm going to challenge a guy that I've challenged multiple times, Isaiah Satania. There's a lot of receivers on this team. You could pick any of them between him, Broden, Tesla, or even Luke Has if you really want to get crazy. But Satania is the one where I just feel like when I think of Satania, I think of an X factor. And I think of a guy who, in these big moments, can make these big plays. We saw him house a punt against BYU last year, which in a game that Arkansas ended up losing. So, I mean, I think there's room for him to accept that challenge in that department. But I also just feel like, we keep saying the big plays. And honestly, Curtis, it's I hate to say that it's big player bust for Arkansas in this matchup, but if you look at Tennessee's defense, they just really don't allow sustainable drives. They don't allow teams to just grind them out 10 play, 83 yards. Like, there's going to have to be these big spark plays where, weirdly enough, Curtis, this is going to sound crazy, I actually think Arkansas might have to lean on Satania more than they do Andrew Armstrong in this matchup, because Andrew Armstrong is that guy where he can get you down the field. He can get you from 20 to 20, converting the third downs, doing all that. And he's going to need to do plenty of that in these big third downs and all that. But I think for Arkansas to really make their mark in this matchup, it's going to have to be some explosion, which this offense has shown capabilities of doing. They've made their fair share of explosive plays, especially with Taylor. That's kind of Taylor Green's like one saving grace. I think Satane is going to have like a real, not just a one play against Auburn, not just you catch a few passes here against A&M, like a legit, like what Tesla did last week, like a 5-catch, 120-yard, like a legitimate performance. And I guess a coming out party of sorts, because I still think, like, Arkansas fans, of course, love Isaiah Satania, but I don't think nationally he's one of those guys as that's billed as one of the most dynamic playmakers in the SEC or anything. But I think he's got that capability, man. I've been a big believer in him. And so I'm going to continue to challenge Isaiah Satania until he becomes an NFL wide receiver.
I like it. I like it a lot. And yeah, it's tricky, because you're right with the way Tennessee's defense is operated, and especially with that strength being just a defensive line that's just nasty, man. And they've really got 3 units that they rotate in and out, and they're all really, really good. With that understanding, I'm still going to challenge Bobby Petrino to get Jaquindon Jackson 20 touches in this football game. Doesn't have to all be carries. You can dump it out to him, get him involved in the passing game a little bit. They did that some the other day, but I just think he's your best player out there, in my opinion. If he's not number 1, he's number 2, but he's definitely up there. You got to give him opportunities to try to do something. I understand, like, it might not be a situation where he's popping off 8-9 yards a carry like he was the first 3 or 4 games of the season, but he's too valuable of a player, and you can't just because it goes against what the strengths are for the opposing defense. You can't just go away from him. And I feel like they went away from him against Texas A&M until later in the game. There was a period of time there where he started to finally maybe wear him down and kind of break through those barriers a little bit. And then you didn't see him much after that. So I don't know what this is going to look like in terms of, if Arkansas is down a couple scores pretty quick and they feel like they've got to kind of air it out to keep pace some, there are still ways to get Jaquindon Jackson the ball. And I just think it's a disservice to the team and the offense if you're not getting to that dude a lot.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I think that's another thing. Like, we just look at the 10, he finished with 10 for 37 against A&M. Mm-hmm. And I really just don't care how the game played out. If he's healthy, that just shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Even if it's struggle, even if the holes aren't opened up, and look, there's going to be plenty of that in this game. I'll even go ahead and tell you right now, Arkansas's first rush attempt is not going to go for 20 yards. Yeah. They're going to get stuffed. Then they're going to maybe you only get 3 this time. Oh, maybe you only get 4. Oh, we found a little bit of a seam for 8. Oh, now it's back to 1. Like, you got to just kind of, again, we keep saying shorten the game. Like, I think there's value in that, even though it's statistically not going to be great and it's going to kind of yuck things up a little bit. This isn't going to be a 500 yards of offense game, I don't think. And if it is, then, we'll just live in that world. But cool. Curtis, I want to issue one more offensive challenge, because we have not looked at the defense yet. But they have their hands full with their matchup. I want to issue one more offensive challenge, and I was trying to think. At first, I was like, I'm going to challenge Keyshawn Blackstock, and then I was like, oh, I'm going to challenge the whole offensive line. But then I was like, that's cheating. Can't challenge the whole offensive line. So I've decided to split it between Blackstock and Addison Nichols.
Okay,
Addison Nichols, former Tennessee guy who they made a captain for this game. Addison Nichols, enough with the snaps. We're done with that. I don't even want to talk about it. I'm not even going to give a soliloquy on why he has to stop messing up the snaps, because everyone knows there's not really much to figure out there. Just stop doing bad things there. But also, and I touched on this on yesterday's show, Josh Heupel don't care about Nico Slaughter and Addison Nichols. When they asked him about him, he had nothing to say. He was like, oh yeah, good for, oh yeah, I forgot about those guys. Yeah, oh yeah, I forgot. Oh yeah, they're at Arkansas now, aren't they? Yeah, good for them. Tennessee, they thought you stunk, Addison Nichols. And maybe you do, but they definitely thought you stunk. They gave up on you. They let you walk out of that door. Didn't try to win you over. Oh no, man, no, stick around. We really need some. No, they let you walk, knowing you were going to go start for an SEC team that was playing them. I don't care whether or not they made the right decision. You need to take that personally.
Yes.
They let you walk out that door knowing they were going to have to come play you at your home. Take that extremely personally. And Keyshawn Blackstock, speaking of taking things personally, again, I'm combining these two things.
Mm-hmm.
Keyshawn Blackstock has been getting drugged through the mud by the entire fan base. And, hard to argue with the fans on this one. I mean, he's been
Struggle.
The grades really show he's been the weak link of this Arkansas offensive line. In last week's game, Arkansas allowed 11 pressures. 7 of them came from Keyshawn Blackstock. Obviously, that can't continue. He's also just, one of those guys. There was all the talk of he was sitting out practices, and he seems to be one of those guys. You got to keep the carrot in front of him. Although these are offensive linemen, so really it's more like the brisket sandwich in front of them.
Yeah.
Getting that Rice barbecue in front of him. But it seems like Keyshawn Blackstock needs to be motivated a little bit. It's just kind of the way he's wired, the way it works. And he said as much on public airwaves before. Keyshawn, if there's ever a time to get motivated, brother, it's right now. Everybody thinks you stink, and they're making fun of your cowboy collar. I myself have made fun of the cowboy collar because you can't have that and be the worst offensive lineman on the team. I think those two guys really need to, pride has to kick in at some point for this Arkansas offensive line. And they're not the only two guys who have struggled. They're not the only two guys who have had mistakes. But I think this matchup this week in particular needs to be one that they play pissed off during. They need to have a little kick in the rear. And so I'm hoping me challenging him, that is providing. If Tennessee giving up on you and the entire fan base hating you wasn't enough, maybe this random blogger challenging you will be what it is that gets them over the top.
I like that you did the combo there because I had a similar idea, but it's a good segue into going over to the defense. I was going to challenge both those Tennessee guys for a lot of the same reasons you said. And then, and they have to be better. I'm not going to do the soliloquy on the Addison Nichols snaps again either, but it is a big deal and it does have to get better. And then Nico Slaughter on the other side of it. I do think it's really important. This is going to be a game where they need him to be good. And he really struggled early in the season. He's been quite a bit better the last couple weeks. But here's the thing. If Arkansas is going to, kind of follow that recipe that we've laid out for them to have an opportunity to win this game or pull an upset, whatever you want to call it, they're going to, kind of shut down that run. And they're going to have to hold up against Nico and those receivers in the pass game. Tennessee, they spread the wealth, man. They're all over the field with that thing. Just looking at the game notes, I'm not even their full stats, but they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys listed here in their receiving core right away that all average over 10 yards of reception, and some quite a bit more than that. So and it's 12 receptions, 11, 8, 7, 7. Like he's kind of all over the place with it. It's not like a Andrew Armstrong and then, God, maybe we can find someone else to catch a football in a game. He really spreads it out. Nico's going to be in coverage a lot, and that's usually not a good thing for him. So he's going to have to be solid in there. And, hey, give up a reception here and there. That's going to happen with the safety, but then finish it with the freaking tackle, man. Like you can't have the combination of getting beaten coverage and then, getting drugged for 10 yards or letting the guy then get the corner on you and go for a touchdown like we saw against UAB or whoever else. He has to be really solid in there. So I have him and Nichols, both of those as those Tennessee guys there. And then, I'm going back to the well. I'm going to do it. Challenging Landon Jackson. Stat games, dude. Don't do this Jekyll and Hyde thing anymore. It's over. You've had your breakout. You tiptoed your way up to the performance that you had against Texas A&M. And I'm not saying you got to go out there and have 2 more sacks and 3 tackles for loss or whatever. But part of making Nico beat you without allowing him to actually beat you would be for you to make his life a living hell in the backfield. And Tennessee was missing at least one of their tackles, maybe both, in that Oklahoma game. I can't remember. Those guys are back now, so the challenge is going to be greater for him. But he's got a wreck shop back there. And to your point from earlier about, kind of slowing down this Tennessee rushing attack, Landon Jackson's been really, really good in that department. So he's got to keep that up too.
I like that, Curtis. And I really like what you said about how Tennessee likes to spread the ball out. Because, a couple years ago, they had that receiver, Jalen Hyatt, who had 1,600 yards or something crazy like that. They're not going to have a receiver do that. Their leading receiver has 240 yards. And pretty much all their top 4 guys, like you said, it's they're all in that 150 to 220 range. They spread it out pretty well. And all the best play callers, what are they? They're matchup-based guys who kind of find the weakness in the defense and exploit it. And so really, I mean, we can issue just a blanket challenge to the Razorback. Don't be the guy that Josh Heupel looks at and says, we got him. That's who we want. And, Nico Slaughter, there's some familiarity. And that's another one where they let you walk out. They maybe even think, hey, we know that guy. We can catch passes on him. Don't let him. But another guy, Curtis, who in the past has maybe been one of these guys that offensive coordinators have pointed out. And we're going back to the injury well here. We're playing the hits today. Hudson Clark, I challenge you to play some football. I challenge you to play some football. He's probable. It's feeling good. Sam Pittman's growing some optimism here a little bit. And with Jalen Braxton out, look, Hudson Clark it's weird how much things have changed because in his absence, TJ Metcalf has become one of the best safeties in the SEC and maybe the country. And so it's like, I don't think Hudson Clark's returning to a starting role. Jaden Johnson's been pretty solid as well. But I just wonder, I feel like this defense could use his presence a little bit. Not like in a actual, like, oh, they've been struggling. I just meant like his leadership matters. He's been around for a while. He also has some versatility. We've seen him play nickel. We've seen him play corner. We've seen him play safety. And so I kind of would like to see him just thrown out there in some certain packages. And I think he just brings a lot from that leadership standpoint, which I know there are so many fans right now listening to this that are like scoffing. Oh, Hudson Clark, man. I mean, that guy sucks, bro. He sucks. Guys, shut up. He's played like 800 snaps in the SEC at this point. Like the dude has been around a while. That means something. I know that none of you guys ever like really, we're a part of a team or anything. That stuff matters. And also, Curtis, Hudson Clark's 1-0 against Tennessee. He beat those cats in 2020. He was around. He can give the speech of the like, guys, I don't lose to Tennessee. Definitely not in this building. The last time we were here, Michael Woods cooked them. Like he can give that whole speech. And I just really want to see him back out there. I really want to see him just add a layer to this Arkansas defense, which, by the way, the secondary, it's crazy. Like 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were like, might be the worst spot of the team. Like, oh, I don't know. We were talking about Nico Slaughter. And after that UAB game, the secondary, I feel like, has had some really good moments here. And without Braxton, we'll see if they're able to keep it. It feels like they're kind of hanging on by a thread, but I feel like Hudson Clark can give that unit a little bit of a boost, and we'll see what it looks like and how they decide to utilize him. But I think Hudson Clark is one of my challenges. And I'm trying to think. I feel like I had another one. What was my other challenge, Curtis?
I don't know.
Do you have any more challenges?
No.
Damn. Really, we just need someone to be a ball hawk. Who is the? Let's talk about this though. Who is the best possibility if Arkansas is going to have a like humongous defensive play, like turnover that turns the tide? Who is it that's most likely to have that? Would you think?
I mean, the easy answer would be TJ Metcalf because he's just kind of been, whether he's the one who's actually making the play or he's setting it up. It's been him.
We just can't challenge him because we challenged him last week, and then we would really be. This would be a full-on repeat challenge
Exactly.
episode. So I'm going to challenge Marquise Robinson, who actually I guess we've challenged before as well. But I think Marquise Robinson, who, by the way, I really like watching him play football because he's a good football player, but also he's just like so expressive and like very engaged physically and always celebrating when he makes a big play, always hitting himself in the head when he makes a bad play. Like it's just fun to watch a guy like that play football. And so I'd like for him to make one big play to where it kind of solidifies him as one of the guys for this defense. And I think, again, we're talking about Jalen Braxton being out. The corner situation, it's kind of surprising that it hasn't been more of a factor, that we haven't talked about it a ton. But I think one of those guys, whether it's two-pick TJ, whether it's Jaden Johnson, who's made plays in the past, whether it's Marquise Robinson, Jaheim Singletary, who has a pick on the year, someone's got to come through and just make a massive play. And who knows? We didn't talk about the linebackers at all in this episode because overnight they've just become the most solid position group on the team. But maybe it's one of those guys, knock a ball through. Tennessee's only lost 2 fumbles on the year, which is kind of crazy. Only lost 2 fumbles and only thrown a hand.
It's not that crazy. It's just Arkansas fumbles the football a lot.
Fair enough. And they've only played 4 games as well, so that's just a fumble every other game. But could be due for a little bit of baby oil on the ball. Could be due for a little fumble-rooski.
I hope so. Yeah, let's let it get weird, man. I like that a lot. Bold predictions. We ready?
I'm ready for bold predictions. You want me to lead it off?
Go for it.
Here's my bold prediction, Curtis. How many do you have it in front of you? How many passing touchdowns does Taylor Green have on this football season? Is it 5?
I'm pretty sure he's a 5 for 5 guy. TDs and interceptions.
5 picks.
Mm-hmm.
Curtis, I think he's going to throw 3. 3 touchdown passes. And here's the thing. This very well could be Arkansas's only 3 touchdowns of the game. I think Taylor Green is going to have to throw the ball into the end zone, and someone's going to have to catch that. I think it's just going to be one of those things where Tennessee is going, for as much as we're saying, hey, Nico has to beat Arkansas, Tennessee is sitting over there like, there ain't no way we're letting this cat beat us. Like we're gonna force this long guy who completes 55% of his passes. I imagine he's going to see plenty of one-on-one matchups. I imagine some of those big plays are going to be there to make. I think he's going to have to make them if Arkansas is going to have a chance. I'm not saying that he's going to have 3 touchdown passes and Arkansas is going to win, but I think he is going to have 3 touchdown passes. I think it's going to kind of flip out. I also think Arkansas is a little bit due just because every time they get in the red zone, it's a rushing touchdown. Like if you think about all of his touchdowns this year, I don't know if any of them have actually come in the red zone. Think about it, because he had the 75-yarder to Slaa last week. He had a 43-yarder to Has. He had a 28-yarder to Ty Washington. I don't know what the Broad apparently caught a touchdown. We talked about that the other day. I don't even remember it.
Yeah, it was probably just against UAPB if there were any short ones like that.
If it was, I don't know if Arkansas has thrown a touchdown in the red zone this year, which really kind of speaks to maybe some of Taylor's limitations and kind of just the way that they don't trust him. But I feel like that's got to correct at some point. They've got to throw a touchdown in the red zone. I think he's going to throw 3 touchdown passes in this game. I've actually been pretty good at predicting Taylor Green bold predictions. Like last week, I predicted him to throw for 300 yards? And he threw for 300, I believe. And I think it was Oklahoma State. Did he not throw for 300? It was 250.
I think you said 250 though.
It was 250. He got 275 or something like that. There we go.
And that might have been the one after the game where you were like, maybe I need to be a little bit more bold on the. But right,
because I was like 250. But I feel like 3 touchdown passes for a guy that's done 5 all year. Is that bold enough, Curtis?
That's a bold prediction. And if you're looking for like the most vulnerable parts of Tennessee's defense, you just haven't been able to really see them yet. But it would be that secondary. Because we talked about the defensive front and how just a bunch of veterans, super talented. The secondary, talented as well. They've been really good so far, but they're really young and they're still inexperienced. And so if there's an opportunity to get them, it would be probably on the back end there. So I like that. I think that's a solid one. I've got a couple. I got one for you here. Hear me out. My bold prediction: Arkansas is going to outperform all of Tennessee's rankings. So they're going to hold Tennessee to less than 54 points. They're going to score more than 7 points. They're going to gain more than 176 total yards. They're going to allow fewer than 290 rushing yards. They're going to rush for more than 50 yards. They're going to allow less than 276 passing yards. They're going to throw for more than 125 yards, and they're still going to lose.
Curtis, that's a damn good prediction. And frankly, I don't have any notes. I really do think. Now, I will say, this is where I'm going to credit you because you're an astute journalist. You did the same thing that I did, where you looked at all because their total offense and defenses, they are like crazy,
ridiculous.
But they also had a couple games where they got to really boost it up. Like they ran for 480 yards or whatever against Chattanooga or whatever, and it's still 4 games into the season, so it's like they're not that good. I think they're averaging outscoring opponents 54-7 or whatever, and it's like okay,
all right.
And now we're coming full circle now because you started the program talking about how national guys are saying this is kind of one of those games where it might be closer than people think. As a gambler, Curtis, and I know you're a gambler as well, I'm always looking for stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like I know in NFL games when the team the week before covered and the team they're playing did not cover, it usually flips like 80-something%. So there's something to that. I don't know if Arkansas is actually like the team. It all sounds good until you get to the point of Arkansas is going to have to go out and do it. Yeah. But I do think there's like a mini like path to like Arkansas being the team that is at least a legitimate barometer, which Oklahoma kind of was. And I agree that game was not nearly as close as the score indicates. But I do think like maybe Arkansas could be the first team that offers Tennessee any real adversity. And also I think that just the Ole Miss Kentucky game is kind of what everyone's thinking of because it just happened. And so now everyone's like trying to find the next Ole Miss Kentucky. I don't think this is it, but I think that, that kind of thought process, like I don't hate.
It does make perfect sense. The whole thing about kind of like you said, like you look at everything with Tennessee and it's like, okay, but are they really that good?
Right.
And then yeah, like it is like it just like the big picture, like the 40,000 foot viewpoint. I get it. I do. Like,
Right.
oh yeah, well, like Oklahoma's probably they're not quite what people thought they were, and boy, North Carolina State certainly not. So I don't know. And like Arkansas is a couple plays away from being 5-0, and
They're
like
not that bad,
you
Yeah,
can
they're
look
doing
at it
it.
from that standpoint. And I get it. I get it.
Right.
And the reason I did push back is because to me, it's just crazy that we live in a world where all of a sudden going and winning a road game at Oklahoma is just like, oh, whatever. I just think it's a big deal no matter what. But
I mean, they even covered the spread.
yeah, they did. They did. And I think it was also just because like I watched a majority of that game and it was, it's just a 3-score game and they're just taking the air out of the ball, whatever. And
Was it
Oklahoma
19-3 like early in that game or something like that?
it was like 22 or 25-3. And then
Yeah, I
they
think it was
kind of
22-3.
coasted. The 2 touchdowns came in like the last 7 or 8 minutes of the game or whatever, but whatever, doesn't matter. Oklahoma's very limited offensively, so Arkansas is gonna be a way bigger challenge than that. Defensively, they're obviously pretty stout, whatever. But my whole thing that I go back to is like you can look at it from that viewpoint and start to talk yourself into, okay, yeah, maybe this could be a better game than some people expect or whatever. But then I go back to the pushback that I've heard from other people who have heard that, like if they're having the discussions like we are, the national guys, and one guy's like, hey, you seeing all this? They're close, man. This ain't gonna be a cakewalk. And then somebody says, hey, did you hear Sam Pittman talking about Taylor Green Monday and how they got a quarterback who's not confident and he's rattled back there? Have you've seen all this with the offensive line? You've seen those guys yelling at each other on the sideline. Sam Pittman lost another 1-score game. If you check the pulse of the fan base over there, it's the trajectory for me. Like if Arkansas was the team that was a couple plays away from being 5-0 and they were trending in the right direction, I'd be like, ooh, this could be a go get 'em spot. But I feel like they're trending in the wrong direction. Right. And so until I see otherwise early in the game, I can't do that to myself again, which is kind of what I'm getting at.
The more I really think about it, Curtis, if I didn't cover the Arkansas Razorbacks, like if you and I were located in Boston or whatever, and we were just gambling, yes, I would 1000% bet on Arkansas. Like, without a doubt, I'd be doing that same thought process and not really looking super deep into it. But I think I agree. We're like just being around this team. I don't get the vibe that this team is like ready to slay a dragon necessarily. Mm-hmm. But who knows? Yeah, it is just it's going to be interesting, but. Again, we're trying to cover our bases because we're not trying to be dismissive. Obviously there's a game being played on Saturday and it's only a 13-point spread. So it's like that kind of tells you right there that like there's a little bit of respect from Vegas almost that they feel like Arkansas's got more of a chance than it seems. But I just like I have a hard time picturing in my brain like Talon being at the post-game presser after an awesome game and he's like, yeah, it really motivated me when Coach Pittman said that and blah blah blah. Like. Whatever. But Curtis, I want to get back to I got us off track here by just talking about the David versus Goliath thing. But
yeah, that was my fault.
My next bold prediction, which I'm actually proud of this one. Arkansas averages 2.4 sacks allowed per game. That is 12th in the SEC. It's like 90th nationally or something like that. They average giving up 2 to 3 sacks a game. Mm-hmm. Arkansas is only going to get sacked one time in this game, one or fewer. I think Arkansas. I think it's going to be one of those situations. One, I don't think Tennessee is going to be, especially if they get a lead. I don't think they're going to be necessarily sending the house every play. But I also just feel like Petrino. We saw a little bit of this in the second half where they got the screen game going. They were getting the ball out quicker until towards the end of the game when they had a deficit and they just kind of had to. But I do think Talon's legs can save you from some sacks as well. But I also think Petrino is going to just. He might even go the opposite direction where every play is a screen. Every play is the ball's coming out of his hand quick. I think they're going to like almost overcorrect to where they are not going to let Talon just sit back there and have to like stand in the pocket for 6 seconds and make plays. I think they figured out, or at least they should by now have figured out that's not the go-to path for this Arkansas offense. So hopefully we see some rollouts. Hopefully we see some shortening the field and, some flood concepts where he's rolling out or whatever. But, I do also think they're going to make an emphasis to get the ball out of his hands quickly. Because I think last week was kind of the moment where Arkansas finally accepted our pass pro cannot hold up in passing situations. Like it just can't. The pass pro had not been horrible. Like that was their worst performance of the year. It had been pretty bad and pretty shaky, but it was like they were still making plays. Like think about that Oklahoma State game. They were still making plays 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. I think last week was maybe the eye opener for Bobby Petrino in the offense. I think they're going to go out of their way to make sure Talon doesn't get sacked 5 times. And so I'm thinking 1 sack. That's it. It's not going to be a big factor in this game.
I'm going to give you another stat that's going to help drive home your confidence in that point. As great as Tennessee's defense is, and as much as we hear about that defensive line, they are 14th in the SEC in sacks, 1.8 per game. So there you go. Yeah, which I did not expect to see.
A&M now.
Yeah, that's very true. We did say that about A&M.
All of a sudden, you look at that defensive front, you're like, holy cow, these guys are unblockable.
Touche on that one, man. I had one more, and I feel like this is pretty bold. I predicted Arkansas is going to be leading this game at halftime.
Wow, that is bold.
14-13 is where I'm at. I think Arkansas is leading this game at halftime, and then I think Tennessee covers. That's where I'm at.
Man.
It's still the vibe. Still the vibe that I get in this game. I think it's, Arkansas is something's going to happen to where they're going to get some momentum early. And I think they're going to hang around till late in the 3rd quarter. And then Tennessee gets this thing under control and they win by 2-3 scores. That's where I think this is headed.
I said, I can't remember if it was Monday or Tuesday. I said that this game kind of feels like it could be the 2022 Alabama game.
You did.
Alabama gets it. Now that was a little bit different because they got up 28-0, but we're like, it's going into the 4th quarter and you're like, whoa, Arkansas's in this game. Holy cow. They were down 5. And then they still didn't cover the spread. It was just kind of one of those crazy things. So yeah, I think that's a good bold prediction. My prediction is not as bold as that, I don't think. So penalties really last week were a big deal for Arkansas. I can't remember what they ended up yardage wise, but it was like 75, 80 yards.
10 for 75, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a rough one. Statistically, like they're about middle of the pack in the SEC in penalties. And I think they're 76th nationally, which is a little bit below average nationally. I think they're going to clean this up. Under Sam Pittman, they're one or the other. There's not really any rhyme or reason, and they're not consistently good or bad in the penalty department. They have games where it's 10 for 120, but then they'll have a 1 for 5 the next game. I think we're going to get a little bit of that where I think Arkansas is going to, and again, that has to be if we're talking about things that have to happen for Arkansas to win, they cannot have the 90 yards and penalty yards in this game. And I think Tennessee, some of these high flying offenses, Lane Kiffin, I know it's part of his philosophy. He even says, I know we're going to have illegal procedures. I know we're going to have linemen downfield, but I know that this offense I'm cooking up is explosive enough to withstand it. I know we're going to have holding and all that. And so I think some of these offenses are kind of okay with that. And I think Arkansas, if they're going to win this game, really needs to hammer that home. I mean, Tennessee's 83rd nationally in penalties. I think they need to let them make the mistakes. And I think if Arkansas gets out of this in like they only had 3 penalties for 30 yards type of situation, that's a big factor that could help Arkansas out. Again, I'm not saying Arkansas is going to win this game. I don't think they're going to be particularly close. I don't think they're going to cover. But I do think they're going to help themselves in that department, which could help them in do what you did, have them winning in the first half, where it's like, hey, man, Arkansas really just didn't make any mistakes in that first half. And look, they're winning. And then, the other shoe will drop and all that. But also, Curtis, I'm saying this, I'm willing this into existence for my own personal sanity.
Okay.
Because Arkansas had a ridiculous penalty performance on Saturday, and the Texans won on Sunday, but they legit had like 135 yards penalties. Like it was one of the worst, like in NFL, like of the entire season. And so I just simply cannot watch a team that I hold dear to my heart commit 12 penalties again. I just mentally, I cannot handle that. And if it happens in this particular game for Arkansas, I'm going to be throwing things. And so I think I'm just really hoping this happens, but bold prediction, Arkansas, let me see where should I set the bar? I'm going to say under 45 penalty yards.
Okay. All right. There you go. I like it. I don't think I didn't have any other ones. Oh, I did actually. But you kind of hit it in the challenges. I think I had Hudson Clark with double digit snaps, which we wouldn't know that one until we see the PFF grades on Sunday anyway. So it's no good for the accountability session.
I'll be counting live action.
So I think we were both on the same page. Like, this might be an opportunity to get him in there. No. Nobody's saying he's going to just jump in and Wally Pip, TJ Metcalf.
Yeah,
okay.
no.
That's not happening, but there's room for him to play back there some.
Also, I guess we should announce that programming note, right? That we're going to be doing accountability morning after.
Oh, shoot. We will have it. That's right. Yes. It's a late game or a night game, 6:30. The Pot of That Nature post-game show will go live immediately following the final play of Arkansas and Tennessee. We usually, everything we say in this pregame show of non-negotiables and challenges and bold predictions, we run it back with our accountability session after the game. It's like, hey, this is what we said, and this is how it played out. We were right or we were wrong. We usually do that the same night after the game. It's going to be like after midnight, probably at that point. So we're going to do that on Sunday morning, actually. So Sunday morning, you'll get the accountability session, and then we'll still do the report card where we do the position grades and everything like that. Spread it out a little bit. It's going into a bye week, Gotta let these things marinate some anyway. So, and there's a big UFC fight card we want to catch the end of.
I was gonna say, if you're bored on Saturday night and you're like, man, I was hoping they would have that accountability session, just put like $30 on Alex Pereira KO third round. Yeah. I think that's where we're going with this.
Oh, third round, eh? I like that. I respect
third
that.
round. I think Khalil's gonna be down to walk through fire, and eventually he's gonna get burned.
There you go. All right. Well, that'll do it for us here today. Appreciate everybody for tuning in as always. Make sure you do all the things for us. We really would appreciate it. If you like what we're doing, hey, hit us with a like. Subscribe the Inside Arkansas YouTube page. Anywhere that you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, whatever, the Pot of That Nature feed, make sure you get all set up, follow, subscribe there, and continue to tap in with everything we got going on. Basketball season's coming around. Got a lot of stuff rolling. Check out the website, InsideArkansas.com. We got a lot coming your way. We're really excited about it, and we appreciate all of you. So for Andrew Ellis, it's been Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas on the Pot of That Nature, and we will see you guys very soon. Everybody have a good one.